Hello everyone, and welcome to the breakdown of the fourth Doctor Who story, Marco Polo. Airing from February 22nd to April 4th, 1964, this is the fourth serial of Season 1 and consists of 7 now completely missing episodes. Well, visually missing. The audio survives and is as available as any DVD. Our journey with the first Doctor continues this adventure as we are once again joined by now full-fledged companions, Susan, Ian, and Barbara. There was only ever one alternate title used for the story, and that's the working title of A Journey to Cathay. This is the first foray of Doctor Who into historical stories, and despite its attempted erasure by 1970s BBC joking policies, Marco Polo is an absolute classic that should not be missed or forgotten. We start where we left off on the roof of the world, with Susan finding a big old footprint in the snow outside where they landed. Ian theorizes that the edges just melted in the sun so it looks bigger now. A reasonable explanation, though so much less exciting than a potential Yeti infestation. The Doctor's finding it a bit hard to breathe up in the mountains, but is pleased he managed to navigate the TARDIS to Earth. Susan asks his opinion on the print, but being cold and irritable, he returns to the TARDIS to prepare for a quick departure. Ian and Barbara are just happy to be back on a familiar planet's ground again. Susan informs them that they're somewhere in the Himalayas as they admire the remarkable view.
Dear, we're always in trouble. Isn't it extraordinary? It follows us everywhere.
Unfortunately, while the TARDIS wasn't really broken on their last adventure, it is broken now, with all the lights, heating, and food supply out of commission.
No phone, no light, no motor cars, not a single luxury. Like Robinson Crusoe, it's primitive as can be.
While the Doctor bemoans his blasted machine and sets off to work on it with Susan, Ian and Barbara wander down the mountain a bit in a desperate search of fuel. Approaching a nearby ravine, Barbara stops a bit for a rest as Ian continues their search. While he's gone, she spots a mysterious figure running past. After hearing her scream, Ian returns but doesn't believe she actually saw something in the frigid nothingness. She points out the creature's footprints as evidence and, believing her now, joins her in a retreat to the ship. They return to base just in time to hear the Doctor say it'll take him days to repair the circuit. He suggests they all hurry to a lower altitude before they freeze to death, which everyone unsurprisingly agrees with. Barbara does warn him first of a stranger in their midst. Ian confesses that the footprint he saw earlier resembled that of a fur boot. The Doctor takes this as a good sign, since people means shelter. Perhaps more comfortable than the rock this man is hiding behind while he stares at them. Spotting him, Susan screams. I'll give you that one, Susan. He is looking creepy back there. He runs off, but the companions take chase. The Doctor follows after locking up the TARDIS. Down the mountain, they are greeted by a group of soldiers, their swords drawn and ready to strike. Ian explains that they are simply lost strangers, but after their apparent leader steps forward to examine them, he informs his troops of evil spirits in the mountains. He tells his men to kill the spirits before the spirits kill all of them. Before they have a chance to strike, however, a new leader appears. Commanding the army to sheath their swords in the name of Kublai Khan, the man observes that the Doctor has the mountain sickness, and requests he be taken to the caravan a bit further down the cliffside to recover. As they pass, the begrudging second-in-command casts them a dark look. In a tent below, a young woman named Ping Cho is preparing soup as the party returns. The leader requests she serve it to the guests as Ian guides the breathless Doctor to a chair. Taking a seat themselves, Susan and Barbara observe that only the leader seems to be European. Having heard him mention Kublai Khan before, Barbara, proving she's not misplaced in her profession as a history teacher, realizes his identity. The leader apologizes for the soup being cold. Being a man of science, Ian explains that the lack of air in the mountains is the cause of both tepid meals and mountain sickness. Unable to live answerless any longer, Barbara asks if he is indeed Marco Polo, and the historic Venetian confirms it. The Doctor courteously introduces his companions. In turn, Marco Polo introduces his, Ping Cho and Tigana, the bitter warlord from before. He informs them they're all journeying to Shing too. Forgetting her time, Barbara suggests that they are going to China. However, China doesn't quite exist yet. No, instead they are going to its predecessor, Cathay. For the night, Marco insists Susan share Ping Cho's room and Barbara take his. He'll sleep in the large tent with the men instead. He admits he has questions about the stranger's origins, but accepts that they can wait until the morning. The Doctor has questions of his own, and, unlike Polo, is impatient to discover their answers. He asks when and where they are, to which a stunned Marco responds with 1289 and the plane of Pamir, which doesn't really exist. Or the roof of the world. So Susan was right, it's Everest. During their sleepover, Ping Cho asks Susan where she's from, a question the time traveler finds difficult to answer.
You do not know where your home is? Well, I've had many homes in many places.
Ping Cho says she comes from Samarkand, where her father is the governor, but is traveling with Marco to Shangtu to be married. Stifling her shock, Susan asks if the groom is handsome. Ping Cho confesses she doesn't know because she's never met him. The marriage was arranged. She only knows 2 things about him: his importance and his age, a spry 75. Susan can't help but hide her disapproval of the 59-year age gap. A bit ironic considering recent romances her grandfathers had. Maybe Gallifreyan years are a lot shorter? But the different circumstances of arrangement and affection are worth noting too.
Is there a lot of this in the future?
It does start to happen, yeah.
In the main tent, Tigana's still insisting he should have killed the strangers.
Why? Because their clothes are different from ours? Because their words are unfamiliar to our ears?
Sounds a bit familiar, unfortunately. However, Marco rejects his theory of them being evil sorcerers, insisting that they're only travelers and light will come to all of their questions in the morning. However, Tigana now uses his observations of their wheelless, tiny vessel as proof of their sorcery. Well, that's just another addition to the long list of things to ask about tomorrow. The next morning, up on the cliffs, Ian, Barbara, and Susan show off their caravan. As promised, Marco asks about the lack of wheels. Ian confesses it doesn't roll, but flies through the air instead. True, it hasn't technically traveled through the air yet, but it's certainly a much more believable explanation than apparition. Tigana sees his confession as proof of his theory, but Marco disagrees. Throughout his years of travel, he has witnessed many things happen that he could not explain, and so he accepts that this might just be another one. When asked about the ship's compact size, Barbara says that there's plenty of room for all. Unfortunately, Marco can't see it for himself since it's locked and the doctor, wheezing down below, has the key. The companions also tell him that only the doctor can make her fly, and that the only reason they're here is she's broken. Marco agrees to have his men lug the vessel down the cliff face back to camp. While slurping his soup down below, the doctor bonds with the cook. Helping stir the brew, he asks Ping Cho why she's serving due to her circumstances of birth and upcoming marriage. She answers simply that she likes to serve others. A fine trait, if not taken advantage of. The discussion turns toward the warlord Tigana. Ping Cho explains that he's an emissary from the camp of Nogai, another Khan who's been feuding with Kublai. Tigana is supposed to help negotiate the peace treaty. While commenting slyly on the bloodthirsty nature of the ambassador for peace, Marco and the companions return. They inform him that the TARDIS is being brought to camp. However, the doctor won't have time to fix it here since Marco and crew are moving on, so he'll have to wait until the caravan reaches Lop. Unfortunately, Marco also tells him that, because the Mongols still believe him evil yet powerless outside of his ship, he won't be allowed to enter it again until they settle down a bit at their rest stop. The doctor, in recognition of all the hospitality shown so far, agrees. Now begins a very unique aspect of the story, with Marco narrating the journey as he writes the words in his journal. While talking to the audience is rare but not unheard of in both classic and modern Who, it's typically only for a scene or two. In this story, however, the narration is used throughout as a tool for both bridging major events in the long and tedious journey through the desert, and conveying Marco's innermost thoughts. And so now seems like a wonderful time to talk about the man who breathed life into this portrayal of a historic traveler, Mark Eden. Born in London on Valentine's Day, 1928, Douglas John Mallon, known to us by his stage name Mark Eden, decided in his teens that he wanted to be an actor. However, as with many of us, life got in the way. It wasn't until his late 20s he started performing on stage with the Everyman Theatre Group and Ramsgate. He would continue to perform in repertory theatre until making it to the screen in 1958's Quartermass and the Pit. He spent several decades working successfully on both film and screen, when in 1986, he landed the role of Alan Bradley on Coronation Street. The character is frequently cited as one of the greatest villains in the show's 60-plus year history. On March 8, 2009, Eden unveiled the blue plaque at the Strand Hotel in Blackpool, where his character was killed, marking the 20th anniversary of his widely viewed death. Despite his applauded performance for 3 years as the soap opera's bad boy, he was typecast afterward for psycho roles, and so the job stopped coming as quickly. His last ever performance was quite special, as he returned to the world of Doctor Who to portray BBC One controller Donald Baverstock in An Adventure in Space and Time, a biographical film on the origins of the show that came out for the show's 50th anniversary in 2013.
Kill Doctor Who.
As a side note that doesn't have much to do with anything else, apparently he was also writing a Beach Boys musical in his later years, which is absolutely fascinating to me despite not being able to find anything else about it. Toward the end of his life, he unfortunately suffered from Alzheimer's. He passed away on January 1st, 2021. Back to the adventure at hand. After what I presume was several long days of journeying across Cathay, the caravan has finally reached Lop. As Ian and Barbara watch the soldiers unload the wagons, Marco steps inside the shop to request plenty of food and water for their journey across the Gobi Desert. Tigana, meanwhile, is just lurking and snacking while Ping Cho and Susan giggle their way downstairs. They agree they love their room, but just use different language to convey it.
It is most comfortable. Oh, I think it's fab. Fab? What is that, Susan? Well, it means wonderful. It's a word we often use on Earth.
The doctor also admires the elegance of all Marco's things, to which the Venetian replies that anyone serving Kublai Khan gets the best. Ian and Barbara return from the courtyard to tell the doctor that the TARDIS is set up. However, the soldiers quickly block his path. The doctor is infuriated, but Marco asks courteously that he be seated. I don't know about you guys, but when someone's overly cordial after they just ticked you off, it's one of the most infuriating things imaginable. Anyway, Marco explains that he wants to return to Venice, something Kublai won't allow him to do. However, he hopes that by offering the mystical caravan to the Khan, he will be granted permission to go home. The doctor feels no sympathy because now he's being prevented from returning to his own home. Marco tries to assure him that he can make a new ship in Venice. Well, I appreciate your faith in the man, Mark, but you greatly underestimate the TARDIS's otherworldly needs. Being from the future, Barbara knows that Marco will return to Venice someday. However, he prefers the odds he wore in his hands than fate's. Ian tries to reason more calmly and rationally instead of hurling insults like the doctor, but fails too. When Marco leaves, the doctor laughs.
Grandfather!
It's goodbye, see, he says.
Why are you laughing? He means it. Doctor, he's serious.
I know he is, yes.
What are you going to do?
Oh, I haven't the faintest idea.
This is also my reaction to a lot of things. Just laugh in the face of total despair. Outside in the dark, Tigana receives a bottle of extremely potent toxin from a soldier, and relishes in his plan to poison all but the first of the caravan's water containers. He instructs the soldier to follow the caravan into the desert. On the third day, he promises to join him on the journey back to Lop. A few days later, they'd return to the perished caravan to collect the stranger's vessel as a weapon for Nogai. I know I said Marco Polo was going to take place over 1 or 2 breakdown videos, but that was before I listened to it again and remembered just how much delicious meat this story has to it. It was also before editing, when about halfway through this I realized about 1,000,000 different ways to simplify the underestimated time-consuming process. Therefore, I'm going to stop this part here so I can use my newly developed method for the following parts. I would like to know what you think of the style I approached this missing stories breakdown with. This story, apart from being very long, is very big, spanning the vast land of Cathay. There's a lot of movement, and so since all that remains are stills, I thought it would be interesting to portray that movement via a sort of D&D style mapping system. This might not be how I do all missing stories, depending on their scale, but it seemed right for this one. Anyway, I hope to see you all next time, hopefully not several months away, for Marco Polo's Breakdown Part 2. Allons-y!